Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Trutzel gets to lead his last time. I know it's not printed there, but...
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Powell.
Here.
Councilmember Trutzel.
Here.
Councilmember Kraft.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Peak.
Here.
We have a quorum. Any personal appearances? Consent agenda. One motion not available to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I move that A be removed for discussion.
Item A removed for discussion. Any other discussion? Lori, do you have any?
No,
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
Roll call.
It's a voice vote.
Oh, voice, I'm sorry. Voice. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item A, motion approving the minutes of March 8, 2020, March 22nd, 2020, March 30th, 2020, March 31st, 2020, and April 5th, 2020 City Council meeting minutes.
I make a motion to amend the minutes of the March 8th, 2022 City Council meeting to add the statement that Council members Powell and Clark affirmed that the sample size was sufficient and that the ET study provided to the city regarding Belton citizens' desire to have and pay for curbside recycling was statistically valid. In other words, 95% confident that the result was 65% plus or minus 4.5% to page 12 of the same.
We do need a motion and a second in order to,
We have to have a
Read this
motion
one,
before
yes.
we can amend the motion. We have to have a motion approved.
I make a motion, we approve, or
to hear
motion
the,
approving item A.
yes.
We have a motion to approve item A.
We need a motion to hear item A.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion and a second.
Now he can make a motion.
Okay.
Do we have to approve this first?
No. Now we can talk about it.
Yeah.
So now he can make an amended motion.
Makes a motion to amend.
Okay. This is all on page 12 of the agenda for tonight. I make a motion to amend the minutes of the March 8, 2022 City Council meeting, that's on page 12, to add the statement that council members Powell and Clark affirmed that the sample size was sufficient and that the ET study provided to the city regarding Belton citizens' desire to have and pay for curbside recycling was statistically valid. In other words, 95% confident that the result was 65% plus or minus 4.5%. That's an addendum to what it said before, which was just that Councilmember Powell said at the last meeting there was a public comment on the recycling survey. There were 423 survey respondents to represent 23,000 citizens. And those two sentences really didn't get to the point of what myself and then Councilperson Clark wanted to point out. So I added an extra sentence.
So we have a motion to amend the motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second to amend the current motion.
Okay. A
I'm
motion, okay.
all kinds of confused.
There's a motion to amend the primary motion right now. There's a first and second for that motion to amend. Now it would be discussion on the motion to amend.
All right.
And then vote special.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to amend. Is there any discussion on the motion to amend? Go ahead.
And most of the information I've read, and I don't have the percentage in front of me, that when you do these surveys, that the amount of return on those things is not a real high return, but you still get a good sample of what people are thinking from that survey. And like I said, I don't remember exactly what the percentage is on a return, so I have no problem with what we're doing here. I mean, as far as amendment.
I guess the question I got is, do we need to, go ahead, Brett.
Wait, I'll let you.
I said, do we have to do this for a legal reason to amend this, or is this just,
Well, it's more of a Scrivener's note to make sure it's in the minutes.
This would just be a decision of the city council whether or not to consent to including the remarks of a council member or the synopsis of the debate under the code of ordinances. As written right now, the minutes comply with the code of ordinances and with the Missouri Sunshine Law.
go ahead, Brett.
Is that synopsis of what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not word for word.
Well, apparently, I said a couple of sentences at the March 8th meeting commenting on a personal appearance by a citizen who I thank for coming, and he was casting some doubt on the fact that there were only 423 respondents in a population of 23,000 people, or approximately 8,000 households, and why that would be guiding us on a decision. And I had a longer statement, and Sheila and Andrea had me cut it down, but basically the point was that I wanted to make in March 8th was that contrary to what the citizen said, it is a statistically valid survey that ETC gave us. As Chet says, if they do a sample size, if they do an appropriate sample size and a survey that is random in sampling, then everything they said was true and is indicative of what the citizens of Belton wanted, even though it seems like a fairly low sample size. So the only thing is that my comments in the minutes only had the first sentence of what I said, and it didn't have the rest of what I said. And I cut that down a lot based on some discussions today. So I'll read it again if you want me to, but I think we're spending a lot of
Unless anybody
time.
else wants it read.
Yeah.
Anybody else want it read? Any other discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right,
So is
Hey,
that, do we gotta, do we, oh, you gotta read, oh, never mind.
a motion to approve the amended motion approving the minutes of March 8th, March 22nd, March 30th, March 31st, and April 5th, 2022 city council meetings.
Present.
So we have a motion and a second on the motion to amend. Is there any discussion?
We already received the motion to amend, motion and second. And
This is the motion to approve the
Approved
amended
as
minutes.
as amended, all right, I'm sorry. Any discussion on the motion?
who was the second on the approving the motion
Chet,
as amended? Thanks.
any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, regular agenda. A, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2022-14.
An ordinance of the City of Belton, Missouri, amending Chapter 3, Section 3-10 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilmember Peak,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Powell,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. B, a motion approving both readings of Bill number 2022-15.
An ordinance declaring the results of the annual election of municipal officers of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Actually, I shouldn't have said both readings. I should have said first reading, my mistake. So the motion is to approve the first reading of Bill 2022-15. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move for second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2022-15.
An ordinance declaring the results of the annual election of municipal officers of the city of Belton, Missouri.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Goff,
Yes.
Kraft. Aye. Powell,
Yes.
Lawson. Aye. Clark,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries. C, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-16.
An ordinance declaring the results of the election for questions 1, 2, 3, and 4 held in the city of Belton, Missouri on April 5th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Move for second reading.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2022-16.
An ordinance declaring the results of the election for questions 1, 2, 3, and 4 held in the city of Belton, Missouri on April 5th, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'll just make a comment real quick, Mayor. Just want to thank the citizens of Belton for supporting the ballot issues this time. The use tax didn't pass, which is a disappointment for me. Just knowing where that money most of that money comes from and how it could help us save taxpayers here in our community, it was disappointing, but knowing that for the last 20 years we kicked the water lines down the road, and now we're going to get those fixed for the older part of the community. I appreciate the citizens for stepping forward and approving all that. And Mr. Rokus, good luck. 5 years. Thank you, citizens.
You only get 4.
4. Yeah, 4 years. If we can do it in 3, we'd appreciate it.
Anybody else? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilmember Powell,
Yes.
Goff,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Trutzel,
Aye.
Lawson. Aye. Kraft. Aye. White,
Aye.
Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. Any communication from city council?
Again, I did it last year, and I'll always do it as long as I sit up here. Lori Peak, Jet Trutzel, appreciate you guys' service to our community. You guys been here at least 6 years. Chet served on school board for a long time too. So, sitting on these boards is, you take away a lot of time from your family and to help grow the community, and just appreciate everything you guys done for us. So good luck, and if you ever need anything, call it.
Anybody else? Few last words? You can do that in a minute. You can do that in a minute. When we do your plaque, we can do that in a minute. Lori, do you have any last words since you won't be here for the plaque? I didn't know, give you that time now.
I'm not there for the plaque, but I believe my son and or daughter are going to accept it for me. I just want to say thank you to all the great staff that I worked with over the years. Belton, excuse me, Belton should be proud of the people, the city staff and the department heads that we have. They do an awesome job every day for the citizens of Belton.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you. Do you mind if we say why you're not here?
fine.
She had some medical procedures, so she won't, obviously she's not present, so that's why she's not here, so. Anybody else? Mayor's communication, I just want to thank you both for the time you served for the city and Chet with the school board. Obviously, you put a lot of time in the last 20 years, so I want to thank both of you for your service to the city, so. That's all I have, so we'll get to the presentation of the plaques and recess for the reception, so. How are we gonna do this? Come down here?
Come down here. Good? Yeah.
All right. In appreciation to Chet Chutzel for outstanding and dedicated service as council member of the city of Belton, Missouri from April 2013 to April 2022. Thank you for your loyalty and commitment to the city and to the citizens of Belton.
It's always interesting when you have previous students that turn into working for civic duties. There are a few people in the room here that used to be my students. But I want to thank the staff. They have been a pleasure to work with, very professional. And bottom line is, we got things done. We've had a tremendous boom in the last time I've been on the board and the council. I mean, in COVID, we've moved ahead. We had sales tax. We built buildings. We created jobs. We have worked on roads. We've worked on sewers. We worked on water retention, flood zone. We're working on roads. We got projects in the process right now in North Scott. We got projects on 58 Highway up to the bridge, not beyond the bridge. We got other projects going on. They're on the drawing boards. I will tell you that typically city work is absolutely slow. You can't believe the number of people we have to deal with, right-of-ways and that kind of thing. And you got to understand that things don't get done as fast as they should be. But I've really, truly enjoyed my time on the council. It's been a pleasure. I've learned a lot as well, so it's been interesting. Thank you very much for the time.
All right, as you can see, this is Lori's son, Bill. In appreciation to Lori Peak for outstanding and dedicated service as council member for the city of Belton, Missouri from April 2016 to April 2022. Thank you for your loyalty and commitment to the city and to the citizens of Belton. Any more words? I don't know if she can see me.
Talking to the mic.
Any more words?
I just want to also piggyback off on what Chet said. We did get a lot done. I loved being on the council. Even though things didn't get done as fast as people wanted them to, we did get some things done, and more things are waiting to be done. So I thank everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
Probably just better leave it so I don't screw it up. Probably better leave it.
John Chet's there, he can vote from there. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion
Well-
to adjourn.
Hold on.
It's just a recess.
Oh, aren't they separate meetings? All right, motion to recess.
Okay.
We have
I'll make a motion to recess.
second, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
You can't make a motion.
I know. Motion carries. We stand recess. All right, let's call meeting back to order. Administration of oath of office to newly elected officials. We're going to do James Bryan first because he's up on the screen, and then we'll do the other three down here.
All right, James, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. If you'll please raise your right hand and repeat after me. After I say I, you'll state your name. I
I, James Bryan,
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States
do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
all the laws of this state affecting constitutional charter cities,
all the laws of this state affecting constitutional charter cities,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Belton,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Belton,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge my duties as council member during my continuance therein,
and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge my duties as council member during my continuance therein,
and faithfully demean myself in the office to which I have been elected, so help me God.
and faithfully demean myself in the office to which I have been elected, so help me God.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I have Councilmember White and Clark and Richardson please come up. And same thing, if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me and state your name after the I. I do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Missouri, all the laws of this state affecting constitutional charter cities, and the charter and ordinances of the city of Belton, and that I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially discharge my duties as council member during my continuance therein, and faithfully demean myself in the office to which I have been elected, so help me God. Thank you. Congratulations.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Here.
Councilmember White. Here. Councilmember Powell.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Councilmember Kraft. Here. Councilmember Clark.
Aye. Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Present.
Councilmember Lawson. Here. Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Roll call, or we have a quorum, I'm sorry. Man, personal appearances. Am I reading that? Bob Schmidt and Mike Shiroka, Aaron's Family Fund Center, Police Department donation. Come on up to the...
State your name and address and good stuff.
State your name and address. No, just your name for the record. And
Yes.
Hi, my name is Bob Schmidt. I'm with Aaron's, and that's Mike Soroka, General Manager, Aaron's Family Fund Center. So we, back in 2013, we started a fundraiser, and it grew from a little of nothing to kind of a pretty big deal. In 2013, first year, we raised $7,500, and over the course of 8 years, it was 8 years already, we've raised $266,000 that have gone to charity around our community and around, you know, the country. Everything from the Community Good Shepherd, Down syndrome, in the last 3 or 4 years, to the Foundation for Exceptional Warriors, a veteran-based organization. So, you know, as we got through COVID and all the madness that went on, we wanted to include our first responders. And actually, more than anything, we wanted to keep some of the money here local. And so in 2022, we decided that we wanted to support both the Belton and the Raymore Police Departments. And so in discussions with David and Officer Pruitt and Chief Lyons, we heard a rumor that the Belton Police Department needed a new dog. So this year, it seems like every year we keep raising the bar, but we raised $62,000. So we're kind of excited because, you know, we appreciate all the hard work that the police do. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm kind of sick of all the nonsense that goes on in the media. So we appreciate what they do, and so it's exciting that this year, both Raymore and Belton are going to get the lion's share of the money. And don't tell Raymore, but you guys are getting a little more. But
We won't.
we're a home family here, homegrown. But so I'd like to bring up Chief Lyons and Officer Pruitt. We met with them at the center, and anyway, I guess, do we go up here?
Yeah, come on up here.
We got a check for
Yeah, come on up here. Come on up,
Belton
bro.
Police Department for $20,000.
Say doggy.
All right. So who gets the real check?
We're gonna have to find a big bank to take it. It's hard to get up to 2.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. All right, call work session to order. Items for review and discussion. Item A, Learning and Career Center Sublease Agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The development agreement between North Point Development and the City of Belton for Building Number 4 in the Southview Commerce Center provides for the use of space within that building for a learning and career center. City Council approved the lease between North Point Development and the City of Belton on the January 5th, 2022 meeting, knowing that a sublease would be forthcoming. City staff has been convening and collaborating with West Central Community Action, the Belton School District, and MCC regarding the Learning and Career Center. I'd like to take just a minute to introduce some folks that have come tonight to show their support of this collaboration so far and moving forward. So we have Chris Thompson. He's with West Central Community Action. And Richard Wallace is here representing MCC. And Stacy Yurkovich representing Belton School District. And have I missed anybody? Oh, hi, and Tamika Thompson. Yes, Tamika Thompson also with MCC. Thank you for coming. Okay, with that being said, this continues to be a team effort moving forward. Each organization is bringing something to the table. North Point is providing the 3,180 square foot facility. They're also doing the tenant finish build out. They're furnishing the center with tables, chairs, everything that you're going to need to have an office facility. North Point's also going to pay for the water and sewer. West Central Community Action is going to staff the facility on a daily basis and also pay the operational expenses, such as, toilet paper, soap, those types of things. So, and we really appreciate that. The City of Belton will cover insurance and ongoing building maintenance. And Metropolitan Community College has agreed to pay the gas and electric for 3 years. They're going to sign an MOU for that, and it's going to be renewed annually, unless it's going to be renewed annually. Let's just say that. So really excited about the collaboration efforts that we have had. The Belton School District is also going to be able to utilize this facility for their Ford NGL program with their real-world learning. So we think it's a true win-win-win. So our Economic Development Attorney Sid Douglas has recommended a sublease with West Central Community Action, since they are going to be the organization that's actually staffing the facility, with MCC and Belton School District signing on for limited purposes. And we will be bringing this sublease back before City Council once all of the organizations have had the opportunity to take a look at the sublease and agree upon that sublease. We'll be bringing it back before you. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yes, my question is, what all types of trades are they gonna be doing training there? Is it mostly for stuff that's going on out Southview Commerce Center, or is it gonna be expanded above and beyond that?
It will be expanded beyond that. So right now, the majority of the committee's time has been revolved around facilities and who's going to be taking care of what. So the next step is for all of us to get together and decide on programming.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Does anybody that you mentioned back here want to speak or talk, or? You don't have to. I'm just throwing it out, offer out there if you.
They're here to answer questions. So if anybody has any questions, or Stacy, okay, great.
Come to the mic. Come to the mic, please.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Stacy Yurkovich, and I'm the Director of Academies for the Belton School District and at Belton High School. And my comment is just to thank you for the support for this opportunity, and officially thank Ms. Yatsuk as well. The collaboration between the high school, the school district, and MCC and West Central has been some great conversation, looking at ways that we can work together and build a continuum of some programs and opportunities for kids already at Belton High School, and then extend that and expand it with MCC and West Central. So thanks for the city's support as we continue to plan and work in that endeavor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just that I would say, that's a lot of people to bring together, Carolyn. That was a lot of work.
All right, seeing none. Item B, Southtown Plaza TIF Menards Contract Amendment.
Okay, the Southtown Plaza TIF is a TIF contract with Menards. Within each TIF contract, there are construction completion dates. The Menards TIF contract has 2 project areas. The first project area is, of course, the Menards physical location itself, and that was completed in 2017. Project Area 2 is the Menards outlots, and there is currently a construction completion date of May 31st, 2022, so that's coming right up. Menards has requested an amendment to extend the construction timeline for Project Area 2 to May 31st of 2024, which would be a 2-year extension. An ordinance to amend the TIF contract will be on the council agenda for the first reading on the meeting for the 26th. Tom O'Neill, he's the sales and leasing representative for Menards. He will be present that evening to provide council with an update on his leasing initiatives.
Any questions? How long he's gonna be, but we can always go back to that. All right, seeing none, let's move to C, event street closures.
Start.
Yes, I will. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Throughout the year, the city receives applications for various events that involve street closure. Street closure events are separate from parade permits, but include things like residential block parties, fun runs, festivals, car shows, those kinds of activities. In 2021, there were 6 residential applications for block parties to close public streets. There were 2 public right-of-way applications for Main Street and surrounding side street closures that were city-sponsored events. There were 3 public right-of-way applications for Main Street and surrounding side street closure that were not city-sponsored events. 1 public right-of-way application for Walnut Street that was not a city-sponsored event. And then, of course, there were the park department car shows and cruise nights on Main Street. So far this year, in 2022, we've had 1 public right-of-way application for Main Street closure that was not a city-sponsored event, 1 upcoming right-of-way Main Street closure that is not a city-sponsored event, 1 upcoming that is a city-sponsored event, and of course we have the car shows and cruise nights. In 2021, the event permit application and process were reevaluated. The permit application was rewritten to provide additional structure to closing a street. During this evaluation, one of the items that came to light was the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is just a fancy way of saying you have to properly close a street. This process was not being followed, and it does have certain ways that a street has to be closed when it's a public street. And this is where I'm going to turn it over to Greg because he knows a lot more about it.
So the way you properly close a street, if you look at like our construction zones, we have big barricades, signs telling you road closed ahead, detour ahead. These are actually required for every time we close a road. It really doesn't matter what the event is or what's happening. It's a requirement. It's one of the things that we have to follow, as she brought up, is the MUTCD, which is the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So anytime you close a road, you need to follow that guideline. It's actually rules, even in our code of ordinances, that we have to follow it. So in the past, since we've only had closures, we have it for used to be the homecoming parade and maybe a car show, and there's only a couple times a year we closed it. Everyone in town was here, the police was there. It's not that big of a deal, but it's becoming a bigger and bigger issue. This year alone, nationwide, there's been 7 parades that have cars gone through the parade and killed somebody. And so the issue is growing and growing. None of these parades had proper traffic control at them. So a car comes up the side and you can hardly see, maybe there's even very few people standing there, and they drive through the parade unknowingly what's going on in front of them. So one of the things we want to do is go back and make sure we're closing the streets properly. So at the end of the streets that have a type 3 barricade, they're the ones that are about 5 feet tall, have the 3 big bars that says road closed on it. Before that, you have to have a road closed ahead sign, a detour head sign, and then we have those little sawhorses that have the detour signs on it that you can follow around so a person can follow and figure out which way to go. Now, I know some people feel like we're picking on them, saying, oh, you got to have more traffic control than you used to have. But really, we're interested in the safety of the people who are standing in the street and the safety of the person driving, and to make sure that, nothing happens to anybody, because that's just would be a really unfortunate situation. Now, the next item, when we talk about the next item, I went and got made calls to find out how much that traffic control costs, and for that event, it's going to be $350 to do that event. So depending on how many blocks you want to close, how many barricades need to be out there, how many detour signs have to be put out is going to vary your cost and how much it's going to cost to do proper traffic control. But it's very important that we start doing it and we make sure we keep everybody safe at these events.
So are you asking to go out and rent these things every time? Or we got barricades we put up on, especially parades, we have civil defense out there, police officers out there, so it's a manned event.
So in the past, what we've put out is just, there are 2 sides and 1 bar across.
All right.
Those are not proper to close a street. We actually need the ones that are tall and have all the bars across them that say road closed in the middle. And we haven't bought those, because we don't close a lot of streets ourselves. We just close 1 lane at a time. And so it's something that we don't stock and we don't keep in our
I guess, instead of charging everybody, if it's $350 every time, I'd like to see what the cost is if we're going to close Main Street multiple times, what the actual cost is of those signs, to see if we can purchase those so we have them on stock. That's just my opinion. Chief, you have...
I just wanted to make a clarification. When it comes to the type of event, and we do our planning behind the scenes, I supply the police officers when it's a city-sponsored event. If it is a private event, just like a neighborhood block party, we would not provide the signs. And so I think that's a good clarification. I just wanted to make sure that when it is a city-sponsored event, you would see officers, you would see the barricades, and we would not go back and charge those individuals for a city-sponsored event like the mayor's Christmas tree parade, those types of things.
I think hold on, I wasn't done yet. My biggest issue, and I mean, the last event that we had here on Main Street, I mean, I think Main Street event should be for Main Street. And the last event we had up here on Main Street, I'm like, why were they closing down Main Street? I think we should have validity on why our streets are being closed. So if something on Main Street, you know, if the businesses on Main Street are trying to do something, I get that. But for some outside organization to come and close down a street, I just don't understand why we're allowing that, me personally. But I know our codes are, some city council group has changed that in the past. I know it used to be we always had to approve all those, but I just, you know, for some soccer group to come up here and shut down Main Street, I don't think that was proper. Thank you.
I would like to add that that's my next point that's going to be coming up, is a question on that.
Councilman Gall.
Well, my question was, Greg, I haven't heard of one for some time, but block parties used to be a regular thing, and we just block off a road with a couple of barrels. Is that going to apply to even the subdivisions parties or something they might have? Or?
Correct, and that leads us back to the point that Councilman Clark made, is that for some of these events, we can house 2 barricades. Someone can come pick them up, put them on, and take them down, and that would be easy. When we get into a multi-block or situation, you're talking about a lot of traffic control, and we just don't own it, and we don't. It's something that gets damaged rapidly, so you're constantly replacing it. So when you set it out there, it doesn't always come back in the same condition you put it out there in.
I guess the question I would have, if we don't stock it, where are they gonna get it?
So there's multiple traffic control companies around here. I called the one that's right here in Belton. I also called one that was in Grandview to get pricing.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you explain what that $350 entails?
So they actually show up, they put up all the traffic control themselves at the time that you request it, and they do the whole detour, all the advanced signing. They put sandbags on to make sure it doesn't move. And then when you tell them the event's over, they come back, like this next one's like 2 to 6. So 6 p.m., they'll show back up, they'll pick all the signs up and take them back with them.
And that example was to close Main Street, like if someone was doing a bigger closure
Right.
or residential, the pricing may change.
Correct. Every time is different, depending on how many signs, how many blocks, what you have done.
That particular cost was for 2 blocks of Main Street and a side street.
Gotcha.
And the detours that required for that.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
I guess this is kind of off issue, but if you have a simple block party and you buy these signs or rent them or have the $350 to the company or whatever, and this shows I haven't read the applications recently, but whose liability is it if, as you pointed out, somebody drives their car up on the sidewalk and comes through and kills a bunch of people? Whose liability is that?
Well, if the person, I'm not an attorney, so. I can just tell you though, whoever installs the signs is responsible for the signs. So if someone puts up the signs, they're responsible for the whole event. So if someone moves them, they're still responsible for those signs. If an accident occurs after that,
So I agree with Greg on the first part, and the thing to remember is the city is what's called a sovereign in the state of Missouri, so you do have sovereign immunity, and that is only essentially sidestepped via a dangerous condition. In this case would be a dangerous condition on city property that the city should have known of or reasonably was aware of. And in this case, if you're going to block off streets in accordance with the city code and compliant with the city code, that condition is not reasonably known of because you've complied with your code and the uniform traffic control devices.
So the individual citizen who has their name on the application isn't responsible if they've done everything properly, as Greg.
I don't know about the individual citizen. I'm the attorney for the city. I know the city would have a very good argument to
Well,
be
I guess
dismissed
I
from
did
that.
ask, in the application for this event, let's say as a simple street closure for a birthday party or something, and you, again, you comply with everything, does the application require you to have insurance or anything?
Yes, if they're asking to close a commercial, it's a commercial event, then we do require insurance coverage
Well,
from
no,
the company
well,
asking
a
for it.
birthday party wouldn't be a,
No, we don't require insurance coverage for block parties or they want to have a graduation party or something like that, no.
okay.
Go ahead.
On your homeowners, I guess.
So when you're talking about city,
Tell him to
that
talk in his mic.
includes.
Talk in your mic. Sorry.
So when you talk about city, that also includes parks, and anything that the parks wants to do is also included in that.
It would include the park department, city events, and city-sponsored events.
Okay.
Would be the ones that we would have, either be doing ourselves, with park would be doing, or we would have an agreement with the another company to do it. So
Go
that
ahead.
was our question on this part, was that we needed direction on non-city sponsored events and the proper traffic control requirements.
Well, I'm gonna probably be against going too far, and the reason is because we haven't had it in the last couple of years, but I think we as a community, especially National Night Out, used to always encourage groups of citizens to get together in their neighborhoods and have block parties. And getting signs out there is gonna cost $350. I just don't think that the encouraging part is gonna happen. I mean, I get if we're gonna deal with commercial areas like Main Street, requiring more stuff where there's more traffic. But I think when we're dealing with residential neighborhoods, I'd like to see us be a little bit more lax on that and just give barricades like we've been doing for the last 25 years, because the encouragement that we've been doing for citizens to get out and do watch parties, especially on that one night, I mean, I don't want to end that because of the cost factor.
You're not requiring police assistance there, are you, for these?
No.
No. And is it possible that Downtown Belton Main Street organization could provide the barricades if they were the proper ones?
Most of the time, the events with Downtown Belton Main Street are city-sponsored events. There's a
Okay.
partnership. So this question is specifically about events that are not partnership with the city.
Right. Thank you.
If you want direction on I think it has to come before, like if you're talking about Main Street, is there any other commercial street we shut down?
That's my next question.
I mean, we don't shut down any other street that I'm aware of other than Main Street that actually has businesses on it. We don't shut down 58 Y Highway, North Scott.
No.
So it's usually Main Street is what we're talking about, and I think it has to do, me personally, has to do with downtown Main Street merchants and or the benefit of Main Street, like the Fall Fest and stuff that the city is sponsoring, personally.
So for example, it would be, compared to with last year's stats, it would be the 6 block parties that were approved and the 4 right-of-way closure applications for Main Street or side streets that were not city-sponsored events. So we're talking about 10 from last year.
Go ahead.
On the National Night Out and our neighborhood watch groups, they almost always use Belton parks instead of closing down streets. So I don't think that would affect us for the most part. Otherwise, our big National Night Out was always done on Main Street with sponsorship from the city.
There's always been like one up, it used to be up here on Main Street that night, and again, we shut it down, but it was city sponsored by the police and fire department and all that, but back when I was on council last time, I mean, we had COVID the last 2 years, so they weren't doing them, but we used to have 10 or 12 National Night Out events, and they were in city streets and not up here. We'd have a big one for people that wasn't doing a street closure, but as a former city council member back in those days, I went to mine in my ward, so I don't know what it's been like for the last 2 years with COVID. We haven't had those things, but not to say that we wouldn't have them in the future. I just want to be careful, but Can you explain what those non-city ones would been that we closed the streets on?
I knew I should have written that down. 6 were block parties. One of them was a closure on Walnut Street for a debate on those who were running in 2021. One of them was for the Main Street Theater. Main Street Dance Studio.
Well, can we put
was
in
an
the
event
order? Can we ask in an ordinance if somebody wants to do stuff like, mayor's debate, that they gotta get permission?
Certainly an option.
Yep.
But that goes into my next question. I think I just need to ask my next question.
I just have one other comment, and I think anybody having a block party, I commend them, or when they had the dance thing on Main Street, that was great. But I think from what I hear, if now people setting that up realize they have to pay $350 for signs, and if I was in charge of it, I would be continually not enjoying the event, but looking at the barricades, because it sounds like the liability for any accidents from people driving through, Belton is not taking responsibility, but I would be if my name was on the application. Still, a lot of people probably want to do birthday parties and stuff like that, but they might want to find a grassy field to do it in rather than a street.
The middle of the street. Yeah.
I guess my question,
Hold on, go ahead.
Their
Microphone.
liability increases if they don't
Microphone.
follow the codes, correct?
Microphone.
Their liability increases if they don't follow the codes. And if the codes say certain types of barricades and we lax them, we've increased their liability.
There's the potential for that. We also are all speaking in the hypothetical right now, so it's a little bit more difficult to determine liability.
I guess my question, jumping on Councilman Richardson, is trying to see if we can get a cost, what it would get for the barricade like Main Street. So if downtown Main Street merchants would like to purchase those and not have to rent them every time, they have a lot of events up here, so if it's $5,000 to buy all those,
Yeah, and if $350 only does 2 blocks in the side street, I could see it getting more expensive if you try to do the whole.
but if they have those up here, and that way all the events that are sponsored by downtown Main Street merchants, they can use and not keep renting them all the time.
So the
So-
follow-up question.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Additionally, in the past, the only event permits that required city council approval were those requesting Main Street closure with an anticipated large attendance, meaning over 300 attendees, or if they're going to be asking for city sponsorship. With the increase of requests for Main Street events and closures, staff is asking direction with 2 questions. Does the city council desire all street closure requests for streets for commercial activity, for streets with commercial activity, to come before the council for approval, and that would include Main Street? I personally believe the anticipated 300 attendees is very subjective. So I'd rather make it more objective. And does the city council desire only city-sponsored street closures on streets with commercial activities, which would include Main Street? And city sponsor requests would still come before the council because it would require a resolution with an agreement.
Anybody? Go ahead.
I'm always up for
Go
debate.
ahead. Go ahead.
I think if we're gonna shut down a commercial street, I kinda like making it come through us. Not to say that, I guess I'm frustrated with the last one. I don't know how or why we allow that, but, you're just following code and I get it.
Their anticipated attendance was under 300, and that's why it didn't come before the council.
But I guess my question is, we're shutting down a major thoroughfare on a Saturday when we have businesses open there and they're not bringing in under 300 people. I think we're hurting Main Street merchants by doing that. I just think to shut it down, you should have to have more than 300 people showing up. Personally, I just think it should come before council. I think like the car shows that we do with the parks, we used to do those all at one time. So they would have the dates and we can just basically go down and say, we approve all these dates. I know we're getting ready to do the 150th birthday party, which, I mean, if there's, Main Street's gonna be closed for 4 days, we'll shut that down for 4 days and do it all at one time. But yeah, I think we need to go a little further with this before I'm happy with it, though.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to agree with Councilmember Clark. The last street closure, I got a lot of feedback from merchants on Main Street outside of the blocks that was closed and how it affected their business and traffic that day. So I think it's reasonable that council would have to approve any Main Street closures for city or otherwise.
Just Main Street or any commercial streets that may be closed? Streets with commercial activity. I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly.
Is there any examples of what that would be?
Off the top of my head, not necessarily, but I wouldn't want to pigeonhole the approval.
Yeah, then
I
commercial
would say
streets.
any street with commercial activity. Go ahead, Councilman White.
I'm just curious what you all,
Microphone.
I'm just curious what you all were looking for in direction.
I think we got it. Unless Greg would like something additional on the process of street closure. Okay.
I'm fine. I mean, the thing that we need to make sure is that when someone comes in for a parade permit or something like that, they're also getting a right-of-way permit and a traffic control permit. Because those are things they're supposed to be pulling, and that's how we know they're using the right traffic control.
Go ahead, Chief.
The clarification of what a city event is, city-sponsored event, city event, I think helps out a lot for the police department. So when we know to pour resources into these events. The other thing that came up was we would really like to have at least 60 to 90 days of preparation for these types of events, because a lot of times we find ourselves behind the 8 ball trying to put them together really fast. And if it entails manpower from the police department, we're up against our labor contract on a certain number of days. We have to provide notification to our police officers that they have an event that they're going to have to cover. And so 60 days would be preference in that degree. The other thing would be that I think that the council's really seeing how convoluted and how complicated these issues become with these events, and I just really appreciate the dialogue, because that gives me a lot of input from when we look at these from the police department side.
What's the time frame now?
There was typically none, and so we've had them as much as, a couple of weeks before, and or we've had them come in 4 weeks, and then we tell them to go back, and then they got a week or two of preparation, trying to fix the problems in their plan, and then they come back another week, and so it's very difficult. Like the St. Patty's Day Parade, that was, I reached out directly to the organizer. We had a great relationship. We had a great talk. We had some things we needed to work through in regards to that parade, and we had at least 45 days on the front side of that one, and it worked out great.
Again, a peripheral issue, but once all this is solved, I think that Sheila and Andrea are working on something on our online at belton.org that guides people to what they need, because Greg mentioned 3 right off the bat you need for a parade permit. And I don't think it's intuitively obvious if you need a parade permit, a enclosure permit, or a closure permit, or birthday party permit, whatever. It's just a list of permits, and it doesn't really give you a description or a flow chart of what you might need.
Today, I was on 2 other municipality in the metro on their websites looking at their event process. Quite detailed, exceptional web pages, and that was my plan, was to get back on those, lay it out a little bit more like that, where it's not quite so free-flowing.
Yeah, because otherwise they're just going to call you, and you're going to have to tell them all the different, every single time somebody wants a permit. Or they could figure out a lot just by going online.
I think that answers our first question, that the city council does desire all street closure requests for streets with commercial activity to come to the council for approval. Yes? Then the second is, do you desire streets with commercial activity, which would also include Main Street, to only be city-sponsored events?
I don't think they have to be all city-sponsored events. I mean, if Main Street Merchants wants to do something down there without the city involvement, I mean, Main Street Merchants should be able to control that. I mean, we used to do cruise nights with Main Street Merchants. The park has taken those over the years, but I mean, in the future, the parks might say, we don't want to do it anymore, and Main Street takes them back. So, I mean, it's just, I don't think they all have to be city-sponsored.
With this new direction, they would be coming to the council for approval anyway, even if they're not city-sponsored.
So currently, I heard that if you shut down a city block, everybody on that block has to sign off on it?
We did add that last year when we revised the event permit application and the process that we had. There was, previously to 2021, there was a checkbox that said, I've told all my neighbors. So it was totally at face value. We did have a situation last year in a block party. So based upon that, we changed it to where they actually do have to physically contact their neighbors and have them sign off that they're either approving it or not approving it. It is a 2/3 approval, so not one neighbor could shut the whole thing down.
Thank you. Chief Lyons, the only thing I would tell you about parades is it seems like we have the same parades every year. So they're pretty, I mean, Veterans Day is on, whatever Saturday is close to Veterans Day. So, I mean, I think a lot of that stuff is pretty, you could probably plan for it, but I think the hardest one would be homecoming.
Yes, I would agree. And we started doing pre-planning where we actually write out the plan. We actually have the route. We have the number of officers. We try to integrate a number of barricades so we don't have to put officers at certain intersections, so we keep the overtime amount down. That's something that I took from the city of Lee Summit. We keep those plans now in a file cabinet, and when they come back around, we pull that out. We've already done a debrief on the good, the bad, and we make the adjustments, and we just run with it. And so it turns out that when you do have those things that are regularly occurring, we're much faster at the approval process, and it actually makes our relationship with whoever we're dealing with, the organizer, a lot better.
I agree with Dave that I don't think it should be limited to just city-sponsored or downtown Belton Main Street sponsored events. I mean, if a organization or business on Main Street or any other commercial street wants to have a block party in front of their place of business, they should be allowed to go through the procedures to get the permit, and then it will come to us, apparently.
All right. Any more? You got what you need?
I'm good. Is Greg and Sheila, are you good? Okay.
Stepping right into it, Main Street Wine Festival.
On the agenda this evening is a request for city sponsorship from Downtown Belton Main Street, Inc. for a wine festival on Main Street in June. The festival was approved in 2020, but was subsequently canceled because of COVID. It's a fundraiser for the Belton Educational Foundation. They're asking to close the 300 and 400 block of Main Street, as well as a portion of Walnut. They've turned in their event permit application and are nearly completed contacting the neighbors and businesses along this route. The resolution is on the agenda tonight to ensure adequate time for DBMS and the Educational Foundation to secure vendors.
Any questions? Go ahead, Perry.
I think it's a wonderful idea. I like the idea.
Are you going to participate?
Oh, yeah, we're going to participate.
I mean, we since I was here when this went through a couple years ago, we think it was a wonderful event then and a good way to bring people down to Main Street. So I think this is a value added for the Main Street and for the merchants on. That's what I'm looking for, is to bring people to Main Street, not, I think are we sponsoring this one?
They're asking for city sponsorship, which will be later on the agenda, yes.
Okay. But yeah, I think this is something that I think it's in coordination with Main Street and the Main Street merchants. So yeah, I think this is definitely a good thing for our community.
They're very successful. We've been to a few of them, and it does bring the people out.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Well, I'd like to commend Andrea and the BEF and downtown Belton Main Street because they came to us and asked, do you have any plays that night? And we do. And they offered to stop the event at 6 o'clock. That doesn't necessarily mean everybody's leaving at 6, but we appreciated that. Went ahead and agreed with Andrea's request and also downtown Belton Main Street's Gary Mallory's and Sonia's from the BEF. So I think if we just have more understanding of what each permit is necessary for, and also more cooperation between the groups or pre-planning as to what's going to be happening, I think we can all work it out.
Anybody else?
So
Go ahead.
will you be
Microphone,
bringing back,
microphone.
will
wanna
you be
tape that
being,
thing.
bringing back the cost for the barricades and stuff so the city owns them?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay.
All right, anything else on item D?
Mayor, I got one
Go
thing
ahead.
real quick.
Go ahead.
Do we require, like, for something like that, do we require them to have police officers there? I think Chief Lyon's gonna answer, but I was actually looking at Chief, City, whoever over there wants to answer that one.
We kind of drew a line in the sand. If it's a daytime event like the car show, there's no police officer that's should be on site, and we could use normal controls to control the traffic. We've also, we've not drawn a line if alcohol's provided. We haven't done any of that. We've not had any incidents, so there's really no basis for that. But when it is a city-sponsored event, we will staff officers, especially if it's into dusk and night hours, just so, and with reflective vests at the posts, at the different sites where a car might try to go through a barricade or something like that. We find that more helpful. And then the other thing is anytime the fire department's there, we want to be there.
So I guess my question, I just know like the West Parks, because they require a police officer there when they have liquor at the Memorial Station or at the community center. Is that your guys' ordinance, or is that something that was the city requiring you guys to do?
Yeah, that's the city requires if there's alcohol on park property or city property, then we would provide the officer. And that's
city
actually,
property. Okay, I get it. All right.
yeah, and that's actually something that I've seen in other cities as well.
Anybody else? Item E, Chapter 3, Section 3.24, Code Amendment Liquor.
Currently, Section 3-24 of the Code of Ordinances requires every holder of a city by the drink license to be a restaurant with at least 50% food sales. Although there are a few very specific exceptions to that, such as a microbrewery or a private club or a grocery store cafe. The state does not have this requirement. I've been approached by a new business coming to Belton who is selling wine slushies and will need a state and city by the drink license. She's a standalone retailer, so she will not have a restaurant, and our current code would not allow me to issue her the city license for this particular type of business. Additionally, I was approached just this past week by Hy-Vee, and they will be submitting their application for a buy the drink license later this month. They are specifically requesting it for their cafe area, so it will fall under one of the exceptions in 3-24, and the code will allow me to issue them for their cafe. I'm requesting tonight the City Council's consideration of a code amendment to delete Section 3-24 and to conform with the state requirements regarding buy the drink licenses. It will clear confusion of business owners and will simplify the process for staff, and will allow the other lady to operate in Belton.
Any questions? Thoughts, concerns?
Is there any requirement at all, even a lower amount of food to be sold with that or anything, or is it just strictly you can just sell drinks just
Are you asking
you-
about
are
our
you-
code or state statute?
Or just carte blanche, just wide open, no more requests for 50% food?
I'm asking for no more because it would mirror the state then, and our city license would be the same as the state license then.
State's requirements, or no requirement, or?
So it removes all.
Go
So
ahead,
it
use your
removes all
microphone.
requirements for food, period. You don't, doesn't have to allude to any, I'm close. So it doesn't have to allude to any, food at all. It's just removal of food total.
Yes, but I'll
So
let
the-
Patrick speak too.
That
So the way
matches-
that the current ordinance is drafted, there was originally, it appears, one primary exception, and that was for restaurants to have retail by the drink. Over the past about 15 years, there are now 8 exceptions to the rule regarding retail by the drink, and as those exceptions have grown, and as the state has completely removed the 50% by the drink from their code, or from the state statute, it has created a significant amount of confusion amongst business owners, staff, regarding when I can and cannot get a license. There have been multiple occasions where people have called the city and say, well, I'm approved for my state license, and it's like, yeah, no, but you can't get a city license because you don't fall within one of these 8 exceptions. So I believe what Andrea is requesting is, instead of maintaining these 8 exceptions, that, I mean, a couple of them have been added for specific businesses at specific times. Instead, we just the city rely on state law to direct when a individual may receive a retail by the drink license.
I would support that, so.
Do we still limit how many liquor licenses we have?
No, we don't have the limit anymore. We
Okay.
used to. It used to also be only for restaurants and 75% food sales. So that was changed in 1999 to 50%.
So are microbreweries one of the exceptions?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Anybody
And
else?
that was actually added because microbreweries are specifically allowed to sell retail by the drink under Missouri law, and that was not included in the city's code as another nonconformity with state law that caused a significant amount of confusion in the business and city staff as to why that did not track.
Everybody okay with this? F,
Thank you.
Annual Hotel Tier Program Report. I was wondering why he moved over there.
Good evening. I've been asked to brief the council on our hotel motel tier program or lodging establishment program. We're going to go back a little bit, just kind of go over the program as a whole, as the council that passed this back in 2018 was completely different. Some members may not be familiar with this program. City Ordinance Chapter 15, Division 5, 166 through 169 was passed by the city council.
Hold on a minute, Dan.
Yes.
We lost James.
In order for you to see it,
Is he still there? He's still there? Okay, all
I
right.
can see
Okay.
him on my
Go
screen.
ahead, go ahead.
Okay. The ordinance establishes provisions by which the lodging establishments receive a tier rating and associated requirements for the owners and operators of those establishments based on their tier rating. The ordinance mandates the police department determine the number of calls for service that each establishment had during a calendar year and then divide the number of calls for service by the number of rooms in the establishment to determine a call for service ratio or CFS ratio. Calculation must be done each year by January 31st. Not every call for service is crime-related. Therefore, they shouldn't be used in calculating the amount of crime in a particular establishment. As such, the list of calls for service that are counted was established. That list is also created by and maintained by the chief of police. So if a new category is seen to become a problem related to crime, the chief could add a category to that list. Currently, they include homicide, suicide, attempted suicides, suicidal parties, all sex offenses, robbery, burglary, larceny, narcotics violations, warrant arrests, arson, suspicious activity, vehicles and persons, juvenile problems / arrests, runaways from the hotel or recovered there, disturbances, noise violations or disturbing the peace, vandalism, stolen autos, recovered stolen autos, protection order violations, child abuse or neglect, assist Division of Family Services calls, harassment, trespassing unless it's called in by management, disorderly conduct, fighting in public, resisting or hindering police, abandoned automobiles, weapon offenses, threats, or bomb calls. When the council was first looking at this ordinance, one of the concerns that was brought up was that the program would discourage lodging establishment owners and managers from calling the police when necessary. To negate that risk, each call in the previous list is examined to see if it was an instance where the hotel was calling for assistance in an effort to improve the conditions of the establishment. Instances such as these are not included in the CFS ratio. In other words, we don't want to punish a hotel owner or operator for calling for our assistance to clean up their establishment. The whole point of this ordinance was to improve these establishments. Once the call for service ratio has been determined, each establishment is classified into tier based on the number of calls for service per year per room in the preceding year. The ratings are as follows. Tier 1, less than half a call for service per room. Tier 2, 0.5 calls to 1 call for service per room per year. Tier 3 would be more than 1 call for service per room per year. And that's calls that are on that list. Once the CFS ratio and the tier rating has been determined for the preceding year, the police department notifies the owner by regular and certified mail. This notification also advises the steps the establishment needs to take by ordinance based on their tier rating. Tier 1 requirements. Maintain a guest log per state statute, make it available upon request to authorized city personnel, and to ensure posting of registered sex offenders of permanent guests, which is more than 30 days, or employees. Tier 2 includes all the Tier 1 requirements. Additionally, they have to have a lodging establishment operator or designee available on the premises at all times. They must install and maintain an operational digital surveillance camera with recorder in the lobby, parking lots, indoor, outdoor common areas, 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. They must install adequate lighting in those areas as well, as needed for the camera recorder to properly work. Retention of the video shall be for a period of 30 days. They must obtain and document guest vehicle information, including make, model, color, and license plate. They must ensure all registered guests 18 years or older provide government-issued ID, which would be photocopied and maintained at the establishment during the length of the stay. Tier 3 requirements would include all the Tier 1 and 2 requirements. Additionally, they would have to provide dedicated on-site security staff from 6 p.m. through 6 a.m., 7 days a week. They provide the Belton Police Chief or designee with the names and contact information for all lodging establishment operators and security staff. They provide 24-hour days, 7-day-a-week front desk personnel. Install and maintain lighting in the lobby, parking lots, and indoor and outdoor common areas of the establishment, even if they're not the areas that are being recorded. Ensure parking passes are issued and recorded for all vehicles allowed to park on the premises, with each pass marked with the issue date and expiration date. All vehicles shall prominently display the pass on the front windshield. So in other words, an officer could go see a car in the parking lot, check the parking pass, go to the front desk and find out whose vehicle that is. They maintain a daily key or key card log. Each key or key card found to be missing must have its corresponding lock rekeyed prior to the room being rented. Each master key or card found to be missing will require the establishment to rekey all corresponding locks. That sounds major, but these days most of them are digital. It's a matter of reprogramming. Records of all rooms being rekeyed shall be maintained by the lodging establishment operator for a period of 12 months. They must ensure all lodging establishment visitors sign in at the front desk, and those 18 years or older provide government-issued ID, which will be photocopied and maintained at the establishment office. All lodging establishment visitors, additionally, will sign out at the front desk and leave the premises by 11 p.m. They are to contact the Belton Police Chief or designee to discuss opportunities to prevent crime on the premises. The lodging establishment operator shall have 90 calendar days from the date of the receipt of the tier classification notice to implement the tier requirements as specified. The tier compliance inspection shall be conducted by police, fire, and code enforcement after the 90-day calendar period. Failure to comply. The Belton Police Chief or designee with code enforcement or designee shall notify any non-compliant lodging establishment owner-operator of the non-compliance finding. Such written notice shall be directed by certified or registered U.S. mail and regular mail, postage paid to the business address on the business license. Such written notice will include a non-compliant finding placard. The lodging establishment operator shall post this in the vicinity of the registration desk, openly and conspicuously viewable by the public. The lodging establishment operators will have 30 calendar days following the date of initial notice to comply with the tier requirements. During that time, no new rentals of guest rooms may be made to any transient or permanent guest. So the goal there is, if this continues on and the license were to be pulled, it'd be pulled on hopefully an empty hotel. After the 30 calendar day period, reinspection for tier compliance shall be conducted by the police department, fire department, and code enforcement. The Belton Police Chief or designee shall refer the non-compliant lodging establishment after 30 days in the reinspection to the municipal court for any violation under the article, and to the city clerk business license official to process under the administrative procedures of Chapter 6, business licenses and regulations. In other words, this could go to a point where they could lose their business license. I want to discuss program impact. We all remember the welcome in until this a couple months ago when it began becoming flattened. But when this program first went into effect, the welcome in honestly was a big impetus that brought this program forward. It was a problem area. In 2018, they averaged almost 1.5 calls in every single room of a 109-room hotel. And those are the calls that counted. That didn't count all the other small nuisance calls. They got on board with this program. They were a Tier 3 hotel, and honestly, management bought in, did everything they needed to do, and had their compliance ahead of schedule. In 2019, their call for service ratio went down to 0.51. Dramatic increase or decrease. They were still a Tier 2, but they almost made Tier 1. In 2020, they went down to 0.36 calls for service. So regardless of everything else that happened there, this program on that property was an absolute success. Currently, the Dutchman Inn at 610 North Scott Avenue for last year averaged 0.25 calls for service. The Econo Lodge averaged 0.64, which puts them in Tier 2. Last year, they were in Tier 1. So since they're going up to Tier 2, they have 90 days from notice to be inspected and make sure they comply with all the Tier 2 requirements. Fairfield Inn, 0.07 calls for service. Hampton Inn, 0.18 calls for service. And Quality Inn, 0.08 calls for service. So as you see, the majority of our establishments have pretty low crime rates with the exception of one. Last year, like I said, they were actually in Tier 1. They came up just a little bit, so this year they're in Tier 2 and they'll have to be re-inspected. Does the council have any questions?
Any questions?
Could you bring up the slide again that showed the definition of CFS? I missed it there.
Give me just a second. As far as how we calculate the ratio?
Yes, right.
Okay.
I know you qualify what a call was, but what's the denominator?
The denominator, okay, so if you have a hotel with 100 rooms and you have 100 calls for service over that calendar year, your call for service ratio is 1.
Okay.
If they only had 50 calls, it'd be 0.5. Okay. So you divide the number of calls by the number of rooms available.
Okay, so it has nothing, well, except for it's annually, it has nothing to do with how many per day or anything. There's nobody that bad.
It's an annual average.
Okay.
Because any business, you could have a bad week, you would have a bad month. So no,
Sure.
it's over January 1 to December 31st.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick general question. Is this something that a lot of cities have to implement a program like this?
The city of Blue Springs and the city of Branson have programs like this. Our ordinances was closely modeled after their ordinances. I was also in contact with officers from both those jurisdictions about implementing the ordinance and talking to them about the effect that it had. Branson especially has a lot of long-term lodging establishments because they have seasonal labor that will come in and only live there for 6 months. So they're in these long-term lodging establishments, and then they leave in the wintertime. Blue Springs, they also actually had another welcome in. Yep. So they had also worked with that same management company, and I pretty much knew what to expect from the management company as we got rolling on this.
Great. I'd never considered something like this, so that was a lot of information. I appreciate it.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Only I'm gonna say it looks like it works. I mean, it's a good program that we have put in place, and it makes the hotels think about that kind of stuff, so,
It holds them accountable.
yes.
And I'm pretty sure it was on here. One of the things, they have to put a placard up saying what tier they are and defining that tier. So if you're from out of town, Mr. Clark, and you're coming in and you see, oh, this looks like a nice hotel, but then you see it's a tier 3 hotel, which means they have the highest crime rating, you might go down the road a little bit. So it benefits their business to get that tier rating as low as they can. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Great presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Item G, Omnigo software agreement renewal.
Omnigo is the law enforcement records management system. They also provide CAD system for police. We have a jail software suite, and then fire actually has their computer-aided dispatch in that suite of programs that Omnigo supplies. We've been a customer of Omnigo since 1998. We're continuing it for one more year. The municipalities within the county of Cass are looking at going to a new software program potentially in 12 to 15 months. But we will be updating or basically renewing this year for $69,493.85.
Any questions? Seeing none, item H, Crime Stoppers agreement renewal.
The Kansas City Metropolitan Crime Commission operates the TIPS hotline that you see on TV, mostly through Channel 9, KMBC. And throughout the history of that, you would see probably a lot of our homicide investigations. We put information out there looking for tips. This past year, we were actually added 2 cold cases to that, the one for Chad Donaldson, a murder in 2014, and then also Brito Ramirez, 2017. We currently have somebody charged with Brito Ramirez's murder in the Cass County Jail. Our part of this is $3,000. Last year, it was $2,500. We increased it to $3,000 because of our more frequent use of TIPS hotline and our partnership with them. It's a great program, especially from a small community like us around Kansas City. We can get that broadcasted on KMBZ and other resources that they put out there in social media, trying to find suspects related to our crimes.
Any questions? Seeing none, item I, Cambridge West Stormwater Project.
I just want to let everybody know that the Cambridge West Stormwater Project, which is where the low water crossing is on Cambridge, we're going to be going out to bid on that job in the next couple of weeks. We just need one easement, and that job will be bid and be brought to you for approval.
Go ahead.
How long's that road gonna be shut down, you think?
Probably about 3 months.
3 months?
Sorry, I know you go that way all the time.
Not really, but I just know there's that subdivision right there that they gotta go around the long way instead of coming in, but I usually cut down Mill to Cleveland, so it doesn't affect me much, but.
Anybody, any got questions? Seeing none, item J, Hargis Gardens Stormwater Project.
Hargis Gardens is the area where we bought the Spanish villas. It's going to affect that whole area. We're actually connecting from Route 58 all the way down. And we're going to do it in a couple different bids because they're slightly different areas. One is actually going through the back of the school, the STEAM Academy there to close that one off and contain that water. One is behind Lacey Road by Baldwin, and we're preparing those. I actually have those final plans in hand. We're trying to get the residents to sign easements, and so if you know anybody who lives there and hasn't signed an easement, I encourage you to tell them, hey, this is a great project. We really need signatures on that, and once I have all those easements, we will put this project out to bid and be bringing it to you. Happy to answer any questions you have about it.
Any questions? When do you anticipate construction?
I'm hoping to be doing construction sometime in the first part of June and finishing by October.
All right, that was my next question. All right. Go ahead.
Somewhere in our past, we talked about the creek bed on Hillcrest school property, that you're gonna do some work over there. Is that still in the plan to help alleviate some of that, or is that part of this project, or is that gonna be something for more of the?
Steam.
Oh, STEAM, yeah,
STEAM,
this
yeah.
is it. So we're gonna let one go through the STEAM Academy there on the west end of their property where it's just a big open ditch.
Right.
Yeah, so we're gonna let one project to fix that, one to do between Lacey and Baldwin, and then one to do the detention pond.
Okay.
And isn't this the one where we were going to, if it dried out, sell off property for development?
Correct. So the rest of the Spanish villas, once we're done with the project, will be available for sale again
Okay.
and reuse.
Anybody else? Seeing none, item K, on-call task agreement with Kissick Construction.
We have on-call contracts right now for 3 contractors. One is not wanting to really work with us anymore, so we put out an RFP to select an additional contractor or contractors, whoever applied. And we only had one person submit, and that was Kissick Construction, so we are going to be submitting a resolution to add them as another on-call contractor for the city.
So you leave it, do you take the other one off so they're not on-call, or you just leave them on there in case an emergency happens, or?
They're not, technically it won't come off till the year ends, but at the year end, we will not renew it.
Okay. So every year we renew those?
Yes, we review them, give them ratings, and then we either continue with them or not.
Who is that that's leaving?
What's that?
Who's leaving?
That'd be Infrastructure Solutions.
Heard 'em.
Infrastructure Solutions are a company out of Kansas.
Any questions? Item L, Inflow and Infiltration Wastewater Project.
So another project we have, I've told you about many times, is trying to reduce the amount of stormwater that gets into our sanitary sewers, which causes backups in people's homes. We have prepared a contract for it, and we actually did all the work to figure out which lines we're going to have the biggest leaks in the city. And so we're going to line some of our main pipes. And so we're actually going to use a contract from Johnson County. It's an open contract that we can piggyback off of. So we're going to be bringing that contract to you to do that work.
Any questions? Is that the line, lining when they shove that?
Yeah, it
That's-
shoves, looks like they're
that's pretty
pushing a
cool.
fire
It's
hose
pretty-
up it.
Pretty interesting, it's pretty interesting. So, any questions? Keep going, Stream Bank Stabilization Project.
Streambank stabilization, Streambanks, I can't say it. Letter M. We're going to be issuing 3 contracts. The first one we've already issued and we'll be bringing to the next meeting. It's basically when a sanitary sewer line goes through a creek and the creek has eroded and where the line is exposed. And so the first one's behind our old maintenance building on Street Barn. We have a contract that we'll be bringing to the next meeting. Then we're going to be letting another contract soon for the one that's by Chipotle. And that's going to be improving that creek. And then once we attain an easement or the property at Oak Hill, we'll be doing that project. But those will be 3 projects coming to you very quickly.
Facility, sorry, any questions? Go ahead.
I got a question on these streams. I got a resident over in Hardy Meadows. There's a stream going through there. And it says it's eroding their yard pretty good. Is that something that we take care of, or is that?
It depends. There are some that we take care of and some are their HOA. I believe that one there is something that we take care of. And it's just on our schedule of items to get to.
Okay, because I think they're about 157th, and I think that's Richmond or Height that comes
Right.
through there. It's going back to the north. That probably hits into Oil Creek, I'm assuming.
Right. And that's one of those that when it was constructed, that lot was given to us to maintain.
Okay. Because I don't think they have an HOA in that subdivision.
I don't think so.
Any other questions on item M? If not, item N, Facility Meter Shop Installation Task Agreement.
So we have, on our new lot, we have another building that we're working on for it to be our meter shop. It's been gutted and it's going to have insulation placed into it. We do spray foam insulation so it actually seals the building as well as it can. and it's airtight, and it's a really, really good way of insulating. And so we'll be bringing that agreement to you shortly.
Any questions?
Which building?
It's the one we're going to use for a meter shop. It's in the southwest corner. If you want to come visit, come on, I'll give you a tour.
Might take you up.
Questions? Oh, golf course annexation.
So I don't know if everybody knows, but our city golf course is half in city of Belton, half in city of Kansas City. And one of the first things I was asked when I first got here a couple of years ago was to try to get it annexed into the city of Belton, which is not an easy task. So I finally have gotten it to the point where next Tuesday I'm going to the City Planning Commission for the city of Kansas City to get it past their committee, that commission. Once it goes past that commission, it'll go to the city council. The tricky thing at this point is that at some point, if the City Planning Commission passes it and doesn't have any restrictions, like you got to do these 3 things now. Once all their qualifications have been reached, and it goes to their city council, we'll have to pass an ordinance to annex the golf course before they will de-annex it. And so it's going to be one of those hurry-up deals that all of a sudden one day they're going to say go, and I'll be bringing it to you right away saying we need to annex it, and as soon as we annex it, the city of Kansas City will de-annex it. But I've gone through the process and be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Is there any downside to from their standpoint to giving it up? Like, do we pay any royalties to them, or?
The only thing that they're afraid of is that as soon as it's annexed into the city of Belton, we'll go and doze the golf course. Plug your ears, Jay. We'll doze the golf course and put up something that has a big sales tax generator, and we'll be generating a whole bunch of money that they could have had.
Oh.
But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon.
So what happens with all their water lines, and I think they got some water running through there too, don't they, Jay, that they've had leaks in the past?
There's one water line and one sewer line that will be involved in this annexation. And so I've provided them easements for both of those. So they will still own all their infrastructure and it'll still all be theirs. It's just that they'll have an easement on our property to get to use it.
Any other questions? Take a break. Item P, EMS Billing Compliance Contract.
Okay. The next 4 items actually are going to be mine. They're going to be on the motion agenda for you on the next meeting. First one is EMS Billing Compliance. This is going to be a new one for us. We haven't done that in the past. We do have a quality billing company that does well, but it's still our responsibility to assure that they're doing it right. So this program gives us the policies, gives us training for all the administration and the folks writing the reports, so that we make sure that we follow the government's guidelines, which is fairly important when we're collecting Medicaid and Medicare money. The second one is an image trend agreement.
Hold on.
My
Any
bad.
questions on item P? All right, go ahead.
All right. Next one is Image Trend Software Agreement Addendum. Image Trend is a software that we use for multiple things, for fire reports, EMS reports, resource tracking and such as that. And this is just adding another element to it, which is going to handle all of our scheduling for personnel and giving us a better way to track and approve vacations and such as that.
Any questions? Go ahead, item
All
R.
right, our 42 CARES contract, this is another new one for us. The city already supplies an EAP program, but what we found is sometimes in the first responder world, those don't translate well to some of the mental health needs that we have to take care of. This is a program through Local 42, which our firefighters are part of their union. So it was something they had approached me with, and it's a very good program, which surprisingly to me was also a very cheap program. So this will be an added benefit for them, giving them another outlet for personal and family counseling.
Any questions? I will say this is a very excellent program from my experience. So, item S.
The final one is just, we've done this several times, and so the fire department is always looking for structures that are going to be demolished so that we can do a little bit more realistic training. We would rarely, if ever, do actual live burn training, but being able to do search and rescue and cut holes in roofs and things like that's invaluable training. And so the Port Authority has been one that we've been doing multiple times. We actually do a non-destructive agreement with them, and that's the old base housing that's still left up there. And so this is just an agreement entered between us and then allow us entry into there and do training.
Any questions? Item T.
Good evening, council and mayor. Item T is simply every year we hire a independent CPA firm to come in and do an audit of our financial statements. In fiscal year 19, we did an RFP and an RFQ and cost proposals, and Trout Beeman was awarded that contract. And it's time every year. We're starting our new fiscal year. It just ended fiscal year 22, and it's time for me to put on the consent agenda next time the engagement letter for you guys to approve. The financial statement audit is $65,000 a year. That also includes a single audit because we get federal awards grants in excess of $750,000 each year. And so we are required to have a single audit done. If we have more than one major grant program, then it will be an additional $2,000 for each major grant program that we have. And all of that has to do with the calculation of how much money that we're receiving versus the overall total.
Any questions? Seeing none. Item U, personal code amendments.
For item U, included in your packet were personnel code amendments. Mostly, for the most part, it was all just cleanup of certain things. We can absolutely ask any specifics that you have, but the big changes that I think are big changes, one is we're removing the appeal provisions for employees that ends up making us contradict the city's at-will employment status. The appeal process negates our ability to be an at-will employer. Two, the second thing is we're making a change to prohibit the use of vacation time in the last 2 weeks of an employee's being with the city. Right now, sometimes we have people who give notice way in advance. They're trying to circumvent and are successfully circumventing. We have a cap on our vacation time that limits the city's liability, and this would at least have an employee, if they wanted to use down there, and we want all employees to use their vacation time, but if they got up to the max, they would need to schedule vacation time with their department head or supervisor, and then they would have to come in the last 2 weeks. So there have been instances where you have a long-term employee and they are giving you 3 months notice, and then they're gone for 3 months, and that puts departments and co-workers in a situation where they're having to carry somebody's load, and it's taking us a long time to be able to fill those positions. And it was not the intention of the council. It used to be that you were not allowed to carry over any vacation. You had to use all your vacation in a year. That caused an issue because everybody would all of a sudden need to all take off the last 2 weeks or last 3 weeks of the calendar year, and that was causing an issue for scheduling and such. And so the council amended the code to allow people to accrue up to 1.5 times, but they left the payout to only be the amount that you earn in a year. And so this is to try to correct that. And then the third change that I think is
pretty big. That's not just cleanup. Currently, employees that travel for city business, they get reimbursed at the state fleet, the Missouri State Fleet mileage rate instead of the federal IRS mileage rate. It is less, but it causes an issue for employees who are itemizing on their tax return, and it causes, well, for them personally, like record keeping issues. Also, currently, if you travel on business, we require you to turn in itemized receipts. By the way, if you use your city credit card, that will not change. But if you are going to pay for your meals while you're traveling on your own, instead of turning in those receipts, you can just, we are proposing switching to the IRS meal per diem that GSA does. So basically, the federal government has, here's how much, if you're traveling to this locality, you would typically pay for a breakfast, for a lunch, for a dinner, and we would use their seminar itineraries if the conference that the city is paying for is providing lunch or dinner, then they wouldn't get reimbursed for those meals, only the meals that weren't covered by the cost of the conference. Those are the biggest changes.
Any questions? That's a lot, so you might want to study that next couple weeks. Any questions? All right. Item V, cash carryover budget true-up.
Yes, so each year we do 2 budget amendments. The first one of each year is to true up the actual cash carryover. We estimate that revenue, and then on April 1st, we know what it is for the most part. I don't have a final number because we always wait until we do the investment reconciliation and finalize the bank reconciliation, but I'm close. I know the general fund looks like it has an additional $363,000 over what we had anticipated for cash carryover. That is mainly due to us not expending all of the money in the police and fire departments. We just have a lot of turnover in those departments, some unfilled positions, and so we end up not spending all of that money a lot of times. And so that's really the main place that comes from. And we will be coming to you with and carrying over projects that were approved in last year's budget, but for whatever reason, we didn't spend the money before the end of the year. A lot of that is going to be, for example, the chip shortage for vehicles. Also, one of the things that we have this year is we have money for the state audit budgeted that we are not going to be spending until this current year. And so all of those items need to be carried over. And so I will be including that. But there were some other things that people have requested to add to use that carryover. Typically, all the additional amount goes into the rainy day fund for council to reappropriate later through the year. But in this case, one of the things, we are having a 150th birthday celebration. There does need to be a budget amendment to give that. Currently, that committee does not have a budget, and they would really like to kind of start planning that. They are asking for $30,000. Also, we have a fuel budget. So when we proposed the budget, fuel prices were much lower. With the economy and with the gas market, diesel market, the general fund is going to be affected if we plan for $5 a gallon for fuel, $5.50 a gallon for diesel, and we do that budget amendment now, that would cost the general fund an additional $157,000. And then I wanted to ask you about, we are getting a new planning and building director. His name's Matt Wright. He will be starting with us on April 18th. A few years ago, when our previous planning and building director came, there was a reorg that was done. And that reorg eliminated our planner position and put all of those duties with the planning and building director. And with the planner position, taking on those duties requires the department director to not be able to focus on management and directing the departments and the staff and doing all of the things that are necessary. And so I am going to ask all of you if you would consider adding the planner position back into the city's fiscal year 2023 budget so that our director can concentrate on actually managing the department and not doing the daily responsibilities of reviewing the plans. Definitely will still be supervising all of that, all of those tasks. Will definitely be still a resource, but not having to focus on deadlines, getting plans turned around, so that we have a person that can sit at their desk and do that work to deliver excellent customer service, and then have the director who will be managing the staff in the departments. I was thinking a grade 55, that position, it just depending on where we would go, I'm thinking it will be with salary and benefits about $100,000 additional to our budget. I have heard from some of you wondering where are we going to get the money to pay for that. I don't like using the carryover for operating expenses. That doesn't feel good to me because the carryover's one-time money and operating expenses are continuing year after year. We do have, and I don't know where I wrote it, but I did write it someplace.
Sheila, didn't we talk about getting rid of one of those building officials that hire the planner so it'd be a wash?
That's one of the options. So, yes. So one of the options would be getting rid of the senior building inspector position. I do believe that it's an option. I do believe that the position is needed, but I do believe also that the planner position is needed more. So
I'd be more in favor of keeping both inspectors and finding money to do the planner. Go ahead, Brett. Microphone. Okay.
Maybe I'm out of place, but it seems to me that the new director should have some input in positions and stuff after he analyzes what he has. That's just a comment I'm making.
This wouldn't have an effect on our plan to hire a new building official, correct?
no, this would not. I don't know if you want to hear what my thoughts are. So, I mean, I totally understand that. I believe that this decision is going to come to you at a later point, even if you waited. And I know the struggles that previous staff had, that current staff are having, and I don't see any reason to wait.
Any questions?
I did find my notes where I wrote, so we had $564,000 in a cushion in the operating budget. That really was enough money to cover a 2.5% or one-step increase for all employees that are in the current year budget, plus an increase of 10% to health insurance benefits next year, because I am trying to make sure that we are always having enough to take care of employees the following year. And so if we just added the position, that would be about $100,000 impact. And of course, it's at the beginning of the year. We don't know what's going to happen with revenues. We did send you all out, the sales tax in this month actually dropped. However, I'm not concerned about that because I truly believe that the drop was due to the change in the sales tax filing date that the state did. And so I believe, and who knows if I'm right or not, we'll know in a few months. I believe that that sales tax drop was simply a timing difference, and that it's not going to actually impact our budget. So, for all of that information, and I really would like to know, first of all, would you like me to make an amendment to add a planner position? And then I would like to know, would you like me to eliminate a senior building inspector position?
Go ahead.
I would say go ahead and add that position, because we've had a senior building official and whatever the other official is for 2 years. We never had them, so until we can hire people, I don't know if it really matters, unless this guy coming in knows people he can hire and bring in to fill those positions. I mean, we had Baker Tilly look for a senior building official, and we never got one.
A CBO, yes, you're correct.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Sheila, what about the income that Dave Clemens made who's that gonna be going to? Was that
New planning.
That
guy?
will be going to the new planning director.
that you've hired?
Yeah.
Anybody else? Any questions? I say we add my thought would be to add the planner and keep the inspector as well, so.
If it's anyone completely against that, because I would maybe do 2 different budget ordinances in case you guys were not going to vote for one. Or I guess we could always amend it after we brought it to you, so I'll just do it like that, and then we could amend it if you voted it down or something.
All right. You have any more on this item
Not on this item.
B? Any more questions on item B? Item W, water, sewer, trash, third-party increases.
Yes, so we knew at the time of the budget preparation that Little Blue was increasing our rates and has increased our rates by 6.4%. We also found out last month that WCA is increasing our trash rates by 4.4%. And we found out recently that Kansas City, Missouri is increasing our rates by 4.8%. And at the dais, in front of each of you, I made 2 options. So our code states that that the council will automatically increase rates for any third-party increases that we receive. So option 1 is in front of you. You'll see that here on the left side of the page are the residential water rates for somebody living inside the city, the current rates on the left-hand side, and the proposed rates with that increase being passed on are on the right-hand side. And you can see that if there were no changes in the debt service charges, that an increase overall for a customer who's receiving a minimum bill would be 3.5%, and that would be $2.21 a month. For a
customer that has 4,000 gallons of water usage, which is one of our average customers, the increase would be 4.66% with a monthly increase of $6.15 a month. I want to point out also that for these, if somebody has a second cart, this proposed rate will charge them the same amount for a trash cart. I increased the rate not only by how much WCA was passing on, but also to have somebody that has a second cart where they would pay the same amount for a trash cart as they do for a single cart. I don't know why we set it up to have them pay less, but we did, and I felt like there was some interest in changing that, and so I proposed that for option 1. Now, on option 2, the city council in fiscal year 2021 approved an ordinance that allowed us to refinance our 2010 Build America sewer bonds. And when those bonds were refinanced, we benefited from a lower interest rate. In 2010, rates were much higher than they were when we sold these new bonds. That lowered the payment on those on those Build America sewer bonds. And so what option 2 is proposing is still increasing the usage rates, but reducing the debt service charge on the sewer bonds, and reducing that from $11.52 to $5.55 for residential only, not for non-residential. So non-residential customers, they pay a higher debt service rate for both water and sewer, and I am just proposing reducing just for residential. And the impact that would have on people's overall bills, for a minimum bill, it would reduce their rates for their overall utility bill by 5.95% a month, which is $3.76 a month, and $3.76. And then it would, for a 4,000 gallon average customer, they would see an 18 cents a month increase, which is much lower than $6.15. And then that's 14/100%.
Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say it's a no-brainer to me. We'll just do option 2. Yeah. I mean, if we can't pay off those sewer bonds earlier anyhow, so if we can't pay them off early, just, if we're gonna be able to collect enough money to get those things paid off whenever the debt service is due, is that, you said 10 more years?
I think it's 36.
36, so you're talking another 14 years before they're actually paid off, those
Yes.
bonds? So, yeah, I would, if we can't pay them off early, I'd rather just reduce what we can, and as long as we're funding it properly to pay them off in 36.
Any other questions or any other comments? Everybody okay with option 2?
I'm okay with that. I just wondered if we didn't do this, for some reason, something came up, we couldn't do it, where would that extra savings go?
So the debt service charge is restricted, and we have it restricted, and we're tracking it so that it can only go to be used for debt service. So what it would do is it would reduce the debt service charge for everyone sooner than 2036.
Oh, okay, so
If that makes sense. So now you're
we'd
just,
have option 1, but for fewer years.
yes.
And forgetting about all the other increases we'll get in 14 years.
So what I heard there, you're saying is if we accumulated the money, it would sit in there, we just wouldn't pay them off until 2036.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
And we still won't pay them off till 2036.
Right. But you're just saying if we kept it like it is in 2028, I'm making up a number, that we had enough money sitting in there to make debt service payments for the next 8 years, we could eliminate the debt service altogether in 2028.
Yes.
All right. I think citizens today rather have the other $6 taken off the minimum bill, especially our people that live by themselves and stuff like that. Maybe we can get recycling now.
It's $3.76, not $6.
6%. Anybody else?
Just real quick, want to clarify and have it stated that we wouldn't be able to pay these bonds off early because there's a penalty for doing that. And that's why we would either accumulate the revenues and just pay them off on schedule.
There's not a penalty,
Okay.
but there's they're traded on, and you cannot pay them off. Like, the investors are counting on those revenues when they're making investment decisions, and you
Okay.
can't.
Thank you for clarifying.
I guess we'll adjourn the work session if there's no other questions. Consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Regular agenda, motion approving the first reading of the bill 2022-17.
An ordinance authorizing the taxable revenue bonds NP Belton Residential Project Apartments, Series 2022, related to a commercial development project in the city, and authorizing the city to enter into certain agreements and take certain other actions.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any information we need? Go ahead.
Sure. This ordinance approves the bond documents to implement the tax abatement that was previously approved by City Council in June of 2020. The Encore apartments are being constructed by North Point Belton Residential LLC, which is an affiliate of North Point Development. And this ordinance authorizes the issuance of the bonds, authorizes the city to enter into a trust indenture, corresponding lease agreement, bond purchase, and deed of trust to secure the payments. These bonds are not payable from city funds, and North Point will be making payments in lieu of tax to the taxing jurisdictions. And this is identical to what we did for the Southview Commerce Center, the initial first 3 buildings, as well as the expansion of building number 4. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Carolyn, how long is that for?
It is 20 years.
20 years.
In their pilot program, every year the fees actually go up in cost for them, if I remember right, correct?
That's correct. The first year's pilots are $165,000, and eventually ending in 2040, the pilot would be $218,947.
Thank you.
I think
Go ahead.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think if you've explained it to me several times, and I still keep missing it. If, for God forbid, North Point went bankrupt 10 years from now and didn't finish this program, I read that we're not on the hook, but what happens?
Okay, so we do have representatives from North Point here, and Sid Douglas, our economic development attorney, is here, and I'd like to call him to the podium to answer that question.
Okay.
I'm not an attorney either.
Good evening, Sid Douglas with Gilmore and Bell. If you were in a situation where 10 years from down the road and North Point was no longer operating the project, the documents provide that failure to continue to operate the project as a Class A apartment complex with all the amenities that we've described, and there's all kinds of elevation and other descriptions about how the project's going to be constructed and maintained. If they don't operate that consistent with those requirements, that it's a default the tax abatement transaction could be terminated, the property be transferred back to North Point, goes back on the tax rolls. So the benefit of all the abatement would go away. As Carolyn indicated, that the city has no funds at risk for the payment of the bonds. The city is leasing the facility to the North Point affiliate. They're making lease payments to the city to pay debt service on the bonds, which North Point owns. And so it's kind of a circle of funds of making a lease payment to pay themselves for debt service on bonds, but it's a way to accomplish the tax abatement. But there's no risk financially to the city, and if they fail to operate it, then we just collapse the transaction and it goes back on the tax rolls.
Okay, so maybe what's the risk to the bondholder then?
Well, the bondholder is North Point, so there's no
Okay,
risk to outside investors.
okay, gotcha.
Any other questions for Sid? Does North Point want to talk?
I don't believe they have anything to add unless you have specific questions for them.
Does anybody have any specific questions for North Point? Okay. All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. B, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-18.
An ordinance approving the 10th Amendment to the Old Town Belton redevelopment plan to approve the 514 D Street project as redevelopment project 2022-02 and to authorize tax abatement as described therein.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just-
Oh, go ahead.
I do have one question. I guess I noticed this, they're gonna put solar panels on there, and that's something that we allow to add up to something like that?
Yes, so I just want to let the council know that the applicant is present tonight. Darlene Bradley is here, and yes, solar panels, according to our city attorney, are an allowed cost.
I also noticed that, I was going through she had a list of stuff that she was doing here, just like, it looks like they're adding on it to a roof. And they're gonna side the whole thing, cause it looks like it needs to be painted.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that'd be a good use of the 353 for this property, so.
Any other questions? Would the applicant like to speak? You don't have to. I'm just making sure you don't.
I
if you
told
want
her
to.
she didn't have to, but she could.
Fine, I just want to make sure she knows she has the option, so. All right, any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, can I make, whoever sends out those, Christy Kessler of the Cass County Library retired. So the new director is Dan Brower, so you might wanna,
Thank you.
Item C, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-19.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Autumn Ridge Fourth Plat, a tract of land in part of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 13, Township 46, Range 33 in the city of Belton, Cass County, Missouri, and authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign the plat for recording with the Cass County Recorder's Office.
present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any information that we need?
The streets are in, aren't they?
Fourth plat, yes.
Yeah. I think I drove through there the other day, and I thought this was,
At a town hall meeting, there was a question about the streets actually connecting to Emerson Park. And I think the answer is that doesn't happen till stage 5 or whatever.
The fifth plat,
Fifth plat.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. D, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-20.
An ordinance determining and declaring the necessity of acquiring for public use temporary construction easements, permanent easements for roadway drainage and sanitary sewer improvements, and right-of-way road for the construction and maintenance of certain improvements to the city's roads network generally located near 58 Highway and Powell Parkway in the city of Belton, Missouri, authorizing the city and its designees to negotiate for the purpose of acquiring the easements and property acquisition by contract or condemnation, and authorizing the city attorney and his designees to institute condemnation
reading.
proceedings if such interest in land that cannot be acquired by purchase through good faith negotiations.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Who was the second, please?
That was me.
Who was the first?
Terry,
Oh, you're changing it up on me.
Yeah. Gotta keep you on your toes.
you want to say anything?
This is for the Route 58 and Powell project where we're working on the area between Powell and the ramps for I-49. Also the moving and connecting 173rd Street and Cunningham over to Peculiar Drive.
Any discussion?
I guess my question to you, as she's reading this book.
Yeah.
This is something that's not imminent that you're trying to do, or is this?
I'm currently negotiating with the property owners, and I'm hoping to negotiate through the end of the month. Anybody who is at the end of the month has not agreed and signed an easement or right-of-way, then we will move forward with condemnation.
Okay, we have another meeting before your deadline then. All right.
Any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. E, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2022-21.
An ordinance determining and declaring the necessity of acquiring for public use temporary construction easements, permanent easements for roadway drainage and sanitary sewer improvements, and right-of-way road for the construction and maintenance of certain improvements to the city's roads network generally located near South Mullen Road and East Cambridge Road in the city of Belton, Missouri, authorizing the city and its designees to negotiate for the purpose of acquiring the easements and property acquisition by contract or condemnation, and authorizing the city attorney and his designees to institute condemnation proceedings of such interest in land that cannot be acquired by purchase through good faith negotiations.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
So I know the TDD picks up the cost for all the attorneys and legal fees then?
Under the TDD cooperative agreement, the TDD does provide payment for all professional services incurred by the city, including attorneys and engineers and similar.
Gotcha.
We pay it, and bill them, and they reimburse us.
But then we do get reimbursed is what you're saying. Oh, that's all I wanted to know.
Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call. All in favor? I'll get it right.
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Any opposed? Motion carries. Getting hot in here again.
The lights are on.
F, motion approving resolution 2022-37.
A resolution authorizing and approving a public service agreement between the City of Belton, Missouri and Downtown Main Street, Inc. to provide public service support for the 2022 Wine Festival on Main Street in Belton, Missouri in June 2022.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is there,
Oh, go ahead.
is there a specific day? It just says June 2022.
I believe it is June 18th, yeah.
Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. City Council liaison reports.
Got a parks update. Baseball and softball signups continue until April 24th. Parents may register their child online. Belton Park's first annual fishing derby will take place on May 14th. There are a few spots remaining, and you may register your child online. Contact Assistant Director Kevin Feeback for more information. The new strength line equipment has arrived at High Blue and is fully functional. There's an Arbor Day celebration scheduled for April 23rd at Memorial Park at 10 a.m. The Park Department has dedicated a new tree in memory of the late Councilman Tim Savage, and the tree will be located close to the station. The first cruise night of the year is also Saturday, April 23rd from 3 to 7 p.m. on Main Street. There'll be a food truck, music, and cars. The Belton Parks Farmers Market has a new location, the Belton Assembly of God Church on 58 Highway. They're sold out on vendor spots. There's a waiting list. Contact Assistant Director Vanda Meehan for additional information. Halfway down. The walking trail at Markey Park will be closed for renovation or repairs on April 19th and 20th. The Belton Parks maintenance team is still looking for seasonal mowers. Contact Kevin Feeback for more details. And the Easter egg hunt was this last Saturday. I took my little girl out and it was a great time. They had about 10,000 eggs spread on the 3 ball fields and it was just really cute and well attended. So well done, Parks. Let's see. And also thank you to the fire department for bringing in the Easter bunny, the assist. Lastly, not quite, preparations are in full swing for the Hy-Vee Summerfest, which will be held on the first Saturday of June, so 6/4/22. And they're accepting vendor registrations and spots are going fast, so email specialevents@beltonparks.org for more info. And the first theater in the park event has been scheduled. It will be 2 shows during one weekend, June 17th and 18th in Memorial Park at the station. And lastly, they've already had 2 baseball tournaments out at Markey Park with large crowds and a good turnout both weekends, so it'll be a busy spring and summer. That's the parks update.
Go ahead.
150th birthday celebration is still in planning. We are looking for bands that have local ties to Belton. So if you know anyone, please have them contact me. And everything else we're just still planning. We are going to ask for citizen volunteers at some point. So keep a watch on our Facebook page if you want to help participate in that. I think that's most of our update.
Rob, you got anything?
We haven't had a planning commission for a while.
All right, I just want to say, I didn't get to say it at the last part of the end of the last meeting. I too want to thank all the voters who came out and supported our ballot issues. I think they will see great progress with these ballot issues and moving forward in the city. So I just want to thank all of them. Trying to think when it was. Saturday I had the opportunity to judge a chili cook-off for the Lions Club. And it's they're raising money for the backpack program for the Belton School Foundation, so that was a good time. I tasted like 17 different chilies, and that was kind of interesting. So that's all I have. So item A, motion approving Council Member Dave Clark as Mayor Pro Tem. Election of Mayor Pro Tem Charter Section 3.14 or 3.4. Why do we do that?
Just a regular motion.
Oh.
First and second.
Motion?
A motion approving.
You're the motion, you second?
Yes.
There we go. We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I can't make that motion, guys. You got it.
City Manager's report.
Just a few notes about the upcoming meetings. So, next meeting, April 26, 2022. If you guys could all be here ready to start at 5:30, we're going to do some ministerial administrative things for the Old Town Belton 353 Corporation for Economic Development. Right?
At 5:30.
5:30 p.m. On May 10th, 2022, if you guys could please arrive at 5 p.m. or a little bit before for your council photo. And then the May 24th, 2022 meeting is being moved to May 31st, 2022 per the mayor's request.
31st?
I won't be here that week.
Any communication from the council?
I won't be here that May 31st. I will be in D.C. with the high school band. I guess my question, Mayor, is use tax was pretty close. I counted about 50 votes. 50 people changed their vote, we win. How long before do we keep moving forward with momentum, or is that something we hold off for a while, or?
Well, I guess it's up to you guys. I guess me too, but what's your thoughts since it got brought up?
I do believe if you want it to pass, you just keep plugging away at it, put it back on.
Go ahead.
I don't think we should put it out the same way that we did. I proposed prior that we do it so that we legally clarify that it can only be used for infrastructure. I would support it if we change the language to that.
You could include language in the ballot language that could restrict its use to infrastructure only.
Just a thought, the criticism I heard was people not feeling like the list of projects was that appealing to them, or distrust that the projects will be delivered on. Is there a way we could inform the oversight committee prior to the ballot and have them prioritize a list either from what has already been out there, what came back on the survey last summer, and just show some, like, I guess, prioritization coming from residents before we ask them to vote on it so that they will maybe support it more? That's a thought.
I think a lot of that list came from like our surveys and just, I mean, I think all you have to do is drive down, originally was I-49. Of course, we hopefully have that taken care of so we don't have to use our money, but all you have to do is drive down I-49 and know that we need to have that thing widened. You can drive down 58 knowing that we need to have that fixed. I mean, there's a lot of that infrastructure that we can see. I think some of the park items, the splash pad, the walking trails, I could get that, 60-year-old guy like me, I'm not 60 yet, but even a 54-year-old guy like me doesn't really care about a splash pad, but, I got a grandson that cares about it. But if you don't have grandkids here in the community, you don't care about a splash pad. But I just, to me, I think that's the park's decision to use that money however they see fit, and I think those are ideas, and I just think we should have here are some ideas, not just here's some of the items we could do. I think the word ideas is a good word.
Sure, and I think the big infrastructure items like 49 would have massive support if people understood the cost share program that other cities are buying in, MoDOT's going to buy in. I think that would make its way back to the top of a list. But, there was pushback on some of the parks projects, like you said, from folks that wouldn't use those items. Also, the way it was structured, parks wasn't being given a set amount of money to do with what they wanted. This was that the council would help prioritize with residents and then execute on those projects, and those projects seemingly are enticing to some residents. My little girl would love a splash pad closer to home. We go over to Raymore, but there's some not clarity about how you just described that.
I think us as city council people need to figure out how that money is going to be distributed first to make sure if the parks is getting their half cent like I think they should be getting, then the parks and the oversight committee could figure out what they're going to do with that money. But it is park related.
So just to summarize, I think we're agreeing here that if the oversight committee could be in action beforehand and prioritize a list, we might have a better result.
Is that possible? Can we do that? Okay.
I'm still.
Oh, I thought you raised your hand. Sorry.
He's thinking.
Well, I agree that we might have some luck to keep putting it on the ballot, but I think there's enough questions here that if we rush, and I think there would be a rush to get it on the next ballot in the fall, we still might have a half-baked thing. And I know there's some residents say, well, why would you consider just banging at us? Let's sit back and think and do some of this, a little bit of this planning before we get it back on the ballot.
Some of the things that you might want to consider is that Raymore will be putting their use tax on the ballot in August. So you would have an education by multiple cities. We understand that MML will be doing a statewide push also in August, although Greg is looking that up and to confirm.
They have all their information on their website to do it, so I don't know if it's.
But, well, they do. Not not lovely. I mean, we used all that information in the past, so, but what they do is they pull the information from other communities that have successfully passed and put that, but definitely it will be in the community, so there will be another community that is helping educate, so.
When would we have to approve it by this body to go on August?
It needs to be approved by at the May 10th meeting, because the election language, the certification date is on May 24th.
What's that cost us to put on the August ballot, since we don't have anything else on there?
What will it cost to
Don't we
put
have
it
to
on?
cost share on elections?
It will probably be around $10,000. It's already a primary for county and federal offices, so there will be people to share the cost with, more people than if we had it at a different time.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
one question I have is, isn't this tax though to replace the money that we're losing now through internet sales? Can you really just designate exactly what it's gonna go to? Because we're losing so much of that sales tax money to a variety of things. You could kind of categorize it probably, but I didn't know that we were going to just slot it to just specific things if it does pass, because I'm not sure what all it would have been used for if it was a normal sales tax coming through.
Well, I think that would be up to us if we want to slot it for infrastructure, or if we want to, I think
Well,
that's up
I
to
just
us.
meant the fear of it going to something that you said, but we really needed this money for this, because this is something that's come up that, I don't know, it's just.
Is that true, Patrick? Yeah. So it'd be up to us to decide, so.
Possibly we could put a topic on the work session for the next meeting, and you guys could have a good discussion where everybody had the chance to think about it and come with their ideas.
It'd be fine. I'd be okay with that. Go ahead.
So to quote Albert Einstein, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's why the last time I said, how are we going to give this to our citizens in a different way? What more are we going to do? And we were told, get council participation. So we had that this time. What I want to see is what are we going to progress in learning to be able to make this different than what we've done each time. So I'd possibly be interested in something like what Allison was mentioning, if that could possibly pass, maybe. I want to make sure that we're going in a direction of fixing why it didn't pass, instead of just saying, let's just throw it back out there again.
I understand what you're saying, and I think we did a great job from when they put it out in 2018, because 2018 it lost by 630 votes, and then last week it lost by 95 votes. So I think the city did an excellent job of getting the message out. I've learned a couple things. I think we started too late on the message because of absentee ballots.
Especially with the senior complexes?
Yeah. We went to a lot of them, and, half of them told us, 3/4 of them told us they already voted because of absentee ballots. And they said, well, we don't buy online, so it wouldn't have affected us. But I'm sure they voted no. I'm not 100% sure, but some of them said, we saw the tax, we didn't understand it, we just voted no. So I think there's some things we could do in between now and August to change our message and deliver that message in a better way, in a more timely way, and I think we could be successful.
Well, I think the other thing, these people don't get a water bill, so they're not getting our brochures or our literature in the mail. So I think, just like you said, being over there earlier and making sure they have the information at their fingertips. I mean, I don't know how many facilities don't get a water bill. I know certain trailer parks don't. I know the senior communities don't. So that's just one of those, I think, if we put it on the ballot for August, we just got to make sure we hit these facilities or communities, and talk to people so they understand what it means. We went to 5 different senior communities and talked to people, and we missed a couple, but, you know, we didn't, you know, it'd be nice to go to some of the manufacturing communities, especially like Lazy Acres, which is mostly senior you know, Crown, and some of those other ones, if they have a community, just because they don't get a water bill, and just talk to them.
Go ahead.
One of the things I think is going to be important is there's a misperception, I think, of how much they can trust this body. And I think we need to prove and to them.
Well, I agree with you, and I think last Tuesday in my opinion, we proved to them that we listened to them, and they approved 3 ballot issues to get stuff done that they were requesting and have been requesting for a while. So, you know, I think what kind of maybe hurt us was the I-49 thing, and we'll know May 4th about the I-49 thing with the state, so that we can change our message that way, because we did it. We printed everything up and had the video made up, and then we found out it changed. So that was a mess. Not anybody's fault, just obviously Greg and I about fell over a chair when we found out that the state was gonna move it up to July of 2024. So we went forward with, and so it's nobody's fault, so I think I think we're proving ourselves. I mean, I do at least. I don't know about anybody else, but I do. So would everybody be okay with putting it on a work session next week or next?
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Any other communications from city council people, members? Sorry. If not, I'll go ahead.
I just want,
Go ahead.
sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask the a question that Jack Jordan was having. Do we have any further information to
I've
give
had
him?
a conversation with him, and he is going to work on a plan
Okay,
and bring it, a more specific plan, and bring it to us. So.
great, thank you.
And that his land he wants to buy it. So. Any more communications? If not, I'd entertain a motion to enter into an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.1, and to discuss matters pertaining to hiring, firing, discipline, and promotion of personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.3, and to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610.21.12, and to discuss confidential and privileged communications between public governmental body and its auditor according to Missouri State Statute 610.21.17, and that the record be closed and that the meeting adjourned from there.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
White.
Yep.
Goff.
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Lawson. Richardson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion passes. Take a couple minutes.